The voice of the drum calls. It sings a song of those who came before us and those to come. A song of survival and strength. A song of participation and voice. A song that calls us together. When we come together and participate in the 2010 census, we use this tool as the voice of all our Native people. Our voice. It is in our hands. 2010 census.
Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Thursday, March 4th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories right here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Members of the Idaho-based Shoshone-Bannock Tribes harvested 4 bison during a ceremonial hunt on the National Elk Refuge in Wyoming. About 60 tribal members participated in the ceremonial bison hunt late last month. The tribes, headquartered on the Fort Hall Reservation in Idaho, have conducted the limited hunt for 3 years. The National Elk Refuge is located within the tribe's aboriginal lands, and historically tribal members lived and hunted in the Yellowstone region as well. And now we go to Alaska Public Radio Network News Director Lori Townsend with a little bit of discussion about one of their senators, Kookesh, and he's been chastised for his conduct. And then an overview on some of a developing Indian Child Welfare Act litigation between tribes in the state of Alaska. Let's go there right now.
Good afternoon, Lori Townsend. Can you give us a little bit of idea of what's going on up in your turf in Alaska with Alaskan Public Radio Network?
Hi, Paul. Well, a couple of things are on the radar this week. One is Senator Albert Kookesh. You probably remember that we discussed a few weeks back that he got himself in a bit of hot water because of comments that he made to the Craig City Council on Prince of Wales Island. One evening he was there. He is the Sea-Alaska, the Native Corporation for Southeast Sea-Alaska's board chairman. He's also a state senator. And when he was at the council meeting, he was speaking sort of wearing both hats and talking about some legislation that Sea-Alaska wants to get put in place that would afford them acreage in a much desired area, some timber land that they'd like, and there's mixed feelings about that. Senator Kookesh was at the Craig City Council meeting when that issue was being considered, and the City Council was considering sending a letter of concern to Senator Lisa Murkowski, our U.S. Senator, about it.
Alleged conflict of interest or pressure from the City Council because of his state senator's position. Is that what was alleged? Some kind of a conflict of interest or pressure because of his legislative position?
The allegation is that Senator Kookesh was there that evening when both this letter of concern was being considered by the council to be voted on, as were their wish list for capital projects that they wanted funded from the state. So he addressed both issues and said in his comments, look, we need to work together. I'm the guy that your projects are going to come to for funding, and Sea-Alaska has helped you out in a lot of respects, and we want support for this lands legislation. After that meeting, a former mayor of Craig and a city council member filed an ethics complaint saying he felt that they were being threatened by Senator Kookesh. The state's ethics subcommittee did find him in violation, and their finding is that he didn't have any gain, which is illegal under Alaska law for a senator to gain anything financially or otherwise through this kind of discourse. But his words were inappropriate and could have been perceived as a threat. So they reprimanded him and directed him to write a letter of apology on his letterhead as a senator to the city council and apologize for his comments, not take issue with whether or not they were perceived correctly. There's supposed to be no argument in this letter. It's just, sorry, I said the wrong thing.
Okay.
And Senator Kookesh said that he's grateful that the ethics committee did not find that that there was a finding that he really did make this threat. He said that would have been very uncomfortable for him. So I haven't heard now what his decision will be, if he plans to take it any farther or if he'll just write the letter and be done with it.
Okay,
that's where it stands.
It just reminds me that in the Senate, some guy has a beef with a particular piece of legislation, and because of one senator standing up and deciding not to vote for something, it led to people being not able to get their unemployment checks and everything else. So you wonder sometimes where the pressure is proper and where the pressure isn't proper, or is improper. So, but anyway, you've got another issue up there in Alaska we want to touch base with just a little bit. This Indian child welfare legal case that's going on. There's a fight between some tribes and Alaska, the state of Alaska welfare system, or, tell us about it.
Well, there's a couple cases. There's the case in Caltag, and there's also a case with Tanana that's in the Alaska Supreme Court right now awaiting a decision. This is kind of a long-running issue between the state and the tribes here because of Alaska's sort of unique, the tribes here don't have Indian country designation for much of their territory. They don't have reservation status. There's only one, Metlakatla is a reservation here, but otherwise the vast majority of the tribes here don't have that distinction. Which
means they're under state jurisdiction for all practical purposes, civil and criminal?
Well, that's the unclear area because there are tribal courts and they clearly have jurisdiction over their members in domestic issues and child custody and adoption issues. But the state is seeking clarification from the appeals court because they feel that the appeals court has contradicted itself in some of these cases. And what they want is who has the right to initiate these cases in the beginning. They acknowledge that tribes have the right and ability to request to have cases that are started in state court if they involve an Indian child or Alaska Native child to come into tribal court. They can request that. Doesn't mean that will be granted, but they can request it. The fight in the Caltag case is over a child welfare case that was in tribal court, but the father was not a tribal member. The state's contending, you guys don't have the authority to do this case, and they went from granting custody to a couple to giving them adoption rights with this child, and the state is fighting issuing a new birth certificate for the child, listing these parents as the parents. And so the one issue with the Tanana tribe is before the Supreme Court. The Caltag decision is being argued at the appeals court level right now.
Okay, so the one case has to do with a non-native father, but the child, is the child considered a member of the tribe?
Yes.
Okay, and so it's likely that the decision is going to go somewhere based on other precedents in the United States that the tribe probably has jurisdiction over that child, from what I know of the case. But this has got to work its way through the Alaskan court system first before it goes anywhere else. The second case, what's that? Can you surmise that real quickly?
Well, in these cases, the Native American Rights Fund attorneys who are working on this say the law is very clear, that there isn't any ambiguity here, that tribes have this jurisdiction, they've exercised it for a long time, and they should maintain that right, and in fact, in some areas, these rights should be expanded. There's been a push for quite some time to allow more jurisdiction in tribal communities over law enforcement issues, and that's something that's been bantied back and forth between our U.S. Senators' offices. There was some ideas, and I think they're still on the table, to expand jurisdiction for tribal courts, sort of like a zone area, maybe 50 miles around a village, where they would have more jurisdiction to over their own members.
Give me the name of the two cases, and then give me your URL where people can pick up the other news that Alaskan Public Radio is offering.
Well, the Tanana case is in the Alaska Supreme Court right now, and we're waiting a decision from that. No word on when that may come. The Caltag case is the the state just filed a brief in it. In that case, a couple of weeks ago. That's going to be before the appeals court. We're not sure when the decision will come in that case either, but probably in April is when attorneys are expecting that. And you can find those stories and more on our website, aprn.org.
All right, thanks for joining with us again today, Lori.
Thanks, Paul.
And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. Thanks for joining in with us. Come again soon.